He is a father and grandfather with a history that connects him to the Fraser Valley since the mid-19th century. He has a long background in natural resource management and transportation. He has worked in the forest industry, aviation, rail transport, and natural gas sectors as a supervisor and manager. He has a career that has included all aspects of financial budgeting, cost analysis, and accounting. A longtime member and current board member of the Chilliwack Dogwood Monarch Lions Club, and possibly the next mayor of Chilliwack? With me today is Ian Carmichael, and this is Point of View. Welcome with me today, Ian Carmichael. Your worship. How does that sound?
Well, I've had a couple of people say that to me, and I'm a superstitious guy, and I would compare that to sort of like being in the dressing room before, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final and singing "We Are the Champions." So
Right.
we'll leave it until
One
Saturday.
step at a time.
Let's leave it till Saturday and
yeah.
make sure that.
Like we're almost there. There's only a couple more days to go. And you've done well. You've been out there, and I think people have a view of you now that they didn't have before. They like sort of where you're going financially and about transparency. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Well, these are sort of the basic foundations of what our democracy is all about. We have to not only see that the work of government is being done, or see that the work is being done, but we must see it to have been done. And that requires that we are open with our populations as to just what are the nuts and bolts behind our governance, what is it costing, and reporting that to them so that they can make good decisions on whether the politicians are following through with, this is a good job that we're doing.
Yeah, that accountability part, I think that's pretty important.
Yeah.
You always talk about, okay, it's how we're spending the money. And there are some big chunks of money, like public safety, I think Jeff said, like it's 44%. I mean, that is a large chunk of money out of the budget. Like, is something like that actually sustainable?
Well, anytime a government budget has a single line item that exceeds 40%, you're getting into the realm of unsustainability. And that's evident at every level of government, be it federal, provincial, municipal. In your household, when your household budget has one item, and for many people that one item is their housing costs, is in excess of 40% of their income, this can cause some problems in an emergency situation, and
Right.
And we need to keep that into
Yeah,
consideration.
especially when you have a whole laundry list of of problems that you need to solve. Like, where are the partners? I know Ken always talks about that collaborative thing. Let's come together. Definitely, Bud Mercer was going on about Fraser Health and saying they need to step up more. What would you do as mayor to get those parties together and to start saying, you have to invest more in Chilliwack and helping us solve some of these problems?
And there are challenges that I think can be coordinated. I'm very encouraged that in the last 5 or 6 years, we've had governments at the federal and provincial level that understand that cities can't do everything on their own, and that by working together, coming together with good faith and all of the tools in their toolbox, we can come to good solutions to some of the challenges of homelessness, affordable housing. But we have to have all levels of government, the private sector and community groups, all at that table, all working in coordination. And my goal as the mayor and as a member of council is to build those relationships so that we can get the best results possible.
Yeah, and we seem to have a lot of people like with Chilliwack Healthier Communities, and a lot of our social, agencies are working together on that housing component. Because I think you and I both agree that that is definitely an area that if people don't feel safe and they don't have good housing, how can we help them? But with us now expanding and growing at, I think it was 12%, we've grown last year. And where do we go? Like, where do we go? We're running out of space and we want to do all these good things. How do we develop a plan that's going to meet the needs of people in need and people that are moving here with their families, you know, to have a great life out here in Chilliwack?
Well, and that's an interesting point. And I would say that we're not running out of space. We've actually run out of space. Our urban containment zone on the valley floor is now fully occupied. And I think it's incumbent on the next council to begin a process where we're able to communicate clearly to the people of Chilliwack that our options are limited now, that we do have to start going up, but in order to do that, we have to have their consent, and we can do that through the official community plan process that I would like to say is actually important now for two reasons. One, that the valley floor is fully occupied, and two, that the value of our land has doubled, not just once, but twice in the last 10 years. And this puts an incredible pressure on all of our limited resources on the valley floor. And to build a complete, livable, compact city within our urban containment boundaries is going to require that the entire population of Chilliwack understand the challenges that we're going to be facing.
That should have been your slogan then. It should have been nowhere to go but up. You know? But I mean, I know that. I was on Peach Road, and I think we were the 7th house that was there. And nobody ever really knew that, wow, this whole area is going to be developed. But now I'm in a stage at where I can't even get out of Peach Road and get down to Keith Wilson, without, a little bit of traffic. And then once I'm on Keith Wilson, trying to get to the Army base or to the university, it's a nightmare already. So with that infrastructure, and look at all those houses that are coming in there now, and those are big apartment blocks. So with those many, and there are thousands of people that are going to come into the area, how are we going to get that infrastructure caught up? Should we maybe have done and borrowed this money years ago? Or how are we going to, if we're talking about, pay as you go, how do we deal with, those problems on trying to catch up with the infrastructure?
Well, and that's one of the problems with the pay as you go model is that we're relying on the development cost charges and the community amenity charges to be paid by the developers of proposed projects. And we've been spending that money as quickly as we've been getting it, and we don't have a cushion. We can't actually sit down and plan. Where is our business district going to be? Where are the 3 transit hubs that we need for the city? One in the north end, one in the center, one in the south end. If we'd been thinking in a longer term perspective and taking those costs into consideration, maybe there might have been a need for some changes in how those DCCs and CACs were actually calculated so that we wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk a little bit about, sustainability and the environment. We never heard that in that campaign. I wasn't hearing that. I think Deborah Soder was the only one who was really talking about it. What are your plans? I know you've talked a little bit about building a passive house, and I think those ideas are really good, but how do you sell that to people coming out here?
Well, the best way to sell it is on the straight economics of it. Now, people will say that the upfront costs are too high to deal with some of these ideas. And I say, well, based on the available technology that we've got today, and we've talked about this, I can build that passive house that is net positive, will provide clean, renewable, non-emitting energy to my neighbors, and I can do it for 1.25 times the cost of a conventional build. And that home will be sitting here as an asset to the community for the next 50 to 100 years. And I think that we have to be looking at that because we know that the climate is changing. had firsthand experience with that last year. You know, we had the heat dome in June, July, followed by an atmospheric river in November, followed by a deep freeze immediately following the atmospheric river. Climatologists tell us that, you know, these extreme weather events are going to happen like that, and they're not going to stop. They're actually going to continue along that path. So we have to take some actions to harden our community against those.
Right. And like, what about the diking system and things like that? I mean, you know, it's pretty sure that this is going to happen again. We can see the climate change sort of taking a hold of the city, and you know, it's going to affect us as taxpayers for sure. Should we be investing in things now, or what would be your plan going forward?
I've always taken the position that 100 years ago, some fellows decided that the Fraser River was going to stay on the north side of the valley forever. And we've built dikes to accommodate that. But at the end of the day, that river has transited back and forth across the valley floor for millennia. And yes, we're going to have to improve our diking systems, because 70% of the structures in the city of Chilliwack are at risk of flooding should those dikes fail. Is there an engineering solution? Yes. Is it within the fiscal mandate of the city? Legally, yes. But realistically, you know, I believe the municipalities that are bordering the Fraser River, the latest estimates were around $3.6 billion just for their portion of the diking improvements that are required. And there's not a community along the Fraser River, lower Fraser River, that can afford that.
Yeah, so this is probably the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
Like, we need to be having some serious talks with other mayors and other municipalities on what's next, what we can do.
Plus,
and how do we help people? Like, goodness sake, if we had a fire even up in Promontory, how are we going to get those people off? You know?
Well, again, this is all decisions that were made, you know, 30 and 40 years ago. You know, there's not a community in BC of 10,000 or more people that didn't have allowance for a community police station, an ambulance station, or a fire hall. And I think, you know, having spoken about this with residents in the hillsides for the last 25 years, that this was an oversight that I think the time has come that we have to address it.
Yeah.
Particularly with the risk of interface fires, as we saw just recently. Our fire services are not well prepared to deal with those fires. In this case, it started at a residential lot and spread into the surrounding forested area. But my fear is when that forested area is on fire and it's approaching our residential area.
Isn't this like a product, you could say, even of our politics of Chilliwack? Because for so long we've had a lot of developers at the table, a lot of developers running and getting elected, and the focus seems to have been on developing. I mean, we had the problems with the, like you brought up, the eastern hillsides, and a little bit of shifting going on up there. So what would be your ideal sort of makeup of, say, a council? Like, who would you want to be on your team? It would be you. Say you wanted this gap filled by this person and a client. How would you organize that sort of team to make this change happen, that we're all going to be safe, we're going to be able to grow in a good green way? Let me know.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Yeah. If you had a wand, right?
When you're putting a team together, if you have the choice, that's great. But in an election, nobody has the choice. It's the people's choice.
Yeah.
So we deal with the group that we've got. We have to be able to, you know, work with the strengths that those people bring to the table.
Yeah.
We have to be able to work to build in areas that, we need to have people that can effectively deal with these circumstances as they arise. And I'm quite happy to work with everybody.
Yeah, it's like that vision, right? Like I go on to that, to the 2022 financial plan, and we all filled out those surveys, what was important, and then everyone kind of says, well, this was kind of important to the city, but what is really in the bigger picture? I mean, we elect leaders to make those decisions, to say, listen, it's not working the way that we're doing this. We need to make a shift over here, and this is the priorities. How do you reprioritize maybe things that are important to you that you think would make this a better city to live in the long run? What would be some of those things that you would like to introduce if you could?
Well, if I could, there are some really simple, basic things to do with our governance model. Opening up the doors to City Hall, making sure that the people of the city actually feel comfortable coming into City Hall, asking questions, participating. When we have council meetings that are happening at 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, it really is an institutional barrier to people's ability to participate in their local government. Similarly with the committees that we've had struck. Do those committees actually reflect the community? That's why I'm in favor of expanding city council to 8 members.
Yeah.
So that we can increase the diversity, and rather than have largely a group of small business owners who have the ability to sort of freedom to set their schedules as they see fit, that we can accommodate people, working people, young mothers, professionals. Let's have a city council that actually looks like Chilliwack.
Yeah, I always say to myself, like, what's the advantage of keeping it small? Like when the workload is growing, and there should be oversight. And there should be oversight.
Absolutely.
That's what you should be doing, and you should be out there. You mentioned Bernie Cross, and I always mention him, with a couple other people too, but tell us your relationship with him. And that was it, is I haven't seen somebody out there who's going to be like that next Bernie Cross, right? Is that going to be you?
Well, I don't think I could ever fill Bernie's shoes. Bernie was one of my dearest friends. When he passed away, I was one of the honorary pallbearers at his funeral. We spent a lot of hours speaking together about politics and our community. And he said one thing to me that has always stood with me. And he said, being an elected official isn't so tough. It's pretty easy when doing the right thing, acting in the interest of the greater good, aligns with your own personal core beliefs. But he said, it's the worst job in the world when acting in the interest of the greater good goes against your core personal beliefs. But it doesn't absolve you of the duty to act in the interest of the greater good.
I know, those are great thoughts, right?
Yeah.
A lot to think about.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back in a couple minutes with Ian Carmichael. Welcome back to Point of View. I'm sitting here with Ian Carmichael, hopefully the next mayor of Chilliwack. How's that all been anyway? Like, how's the campaign going? Who's kind of your team? Are you out there knocking doors? Like, tell us a bit about that. Because when I ran, I loved it. Like, I was scared to death, when I first got into it. But once I got the groove happening, it seemed like a lot of fun. Are you enjoying doing this work?
I am enjoying it. I've got to say, this was the best experience I've had running in an election ever. For the first time, I've actually felt that I was in control of everything that we're doing, that we're accomplishing, that we're connecting with people in the community. And I'm very, very pleased with the outreach that we've been able to make and the response that we're getting to that outreach.
Good.
And I'm very confident that with the help of all the voters in the city that we can come through on this.
Yeah, it's really good to connect with people. I learned more, I think, knocking on doors. I think we did over 10,000 doors, but we started like a year early. And then we really were listening to people, and it just, that was the fun part, was being sort of that servant leader and preparing yourself. You know, I don't think you're ever prepared once you get in, because it's not just this. It's not all the financial plans and everything. It's really setting the stage and caring about people in your community and doing what's right. We had the town hall. There was a good exchange there between you and Ken Popove, and people were kind of looking, because we kind of free rolled on that one. It wasn't like the Slido or just question, answer. It was a little bit more interactive. Did you enjoy that?
I really enjoy those types of interactions, because it really gives you an opportunity to see the differences in the personalities that are at play, in their ways of thinking, and how they can actually communicate to the people firsthand what those differences are. And I think that was a valuable opportunity for people to see that, yeah, there are differences in the way we actually think about how government operates.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mr. Popove said that he was, you know, treating it like a small business. And from my years of experience, the best governments are governments that serve their people.
Yeah, and it was transparency. Excuse me. You did bring up a couple of points. We were able to find some things after digging.
Yep.
You know, you talked about, you know, a certain amount of contracts, because, you know, the expense for a lot of people who are under contracts are pretty pricey. We have this whole entity, you know, there's just not some transparency in some of maybe the salaries that are out there with SEPCO or other things and you were inquiring about that, and I thought that was a pretty legitimate question. I know we definitely have that at Métis Nation BC. Over a certain amount of salaries, they should be out there for scrutiny from the people. Is that something that you think is really important to people?
Well, I think it's important to people for this reason. We have, under the community charter, reporting requirements for all workers that are making over $75,000 a year be listed. And SEPCO is exempted from that because it's a private corporation. But it's 100% owned by the city of Chilliwack. So in my book, by extension, SEPCO is owned by the taxpayers of Chilliwack. And I think there's room for us to make improvements to that so that the people can see that the work is being done and know that the work is being done.
Yeah, I think it was a really good question to bring up. Yeah. And it was interesting to see sort of like the reaction, and you know, I think that's what people are looking for. They just want to make sure that, you know, that they have access to those types of things. Yeah, anything else you want to talk about? Is there something that you know, that you feel was missing maybe in this campaign that should have been out there? Like, I know the environment, I said that already, was one thing. We wasn't really talked about too much. But what else do you think was missing from this campaign?
Well, the important thing to remember in this campaign is that this city belongs to all of us. And I really want to stress that point, that we've got some serious challenges ahead of us. And the only way we can actually address those challenges is with a governance model that accepts that the people of the city have a say, and that we have to actually work with the people of the city so that we can come to good solutions that everybody can agree to, even if it's not exactly their full plate that's filled in those agreements.
Yeah, how about election reform? How's that? Like, don't you think we're due? Like, we talk about some of the mistakes that, are being made, even signage. Like, should we have like one strip here, here, and here that everyone does? Like, we talk about these things, but we keep doing the same thing the next 4 years and we say, oh, gee, we should change this. When is the time to change all of this, Ian Carmichael?
I'm a proponent of proportional representation. I have been for 30 odd years. My former spouse was the female representative on the committee, the provincial committee that was struck to come up with the solution of the BC single transferable vote. And I have seen that as a model electoral system since it was first presented. Can we do that? I think if we have the will at the council table, it could be done by the next election. It is certainly a better system having a ranking system of some sort that allows people to choose their candidates in a ranked order. And I think our first past the post system sometimes doesn't give us the opportunity to get the best representation.
Or wards.
Well,
Sam Waddington talked about that. He said, you elect somebody, from Promontory, elects their representative from there. That person's definitely going to work for their area. Is that maybe something to consider?
I'm not convinced that a ward system for a community of our size would be particularly effective. And it does have some drawbacks in that, we've got more financially prosperous areas than others, and some of the areas that really do need our attention may be left behind in a ward system.
Yeah. And last question, I'm going to go back to, maybe something that was talked about in the last election. What about our own police force? I know Surrey's doing that right now, and we're working with them with Métis Nation BC, on that sort of transfer over. Is that something maybe we should be considering out here?
I haven't really given that much thought. I know that the agreements that are in place with the RCMP here in our community are financially beneficial for the city. I would have to defer that until I get a little bit more information before. There are some big considerations when you go to a municipal force, and I'm not sure that we're quite there yet.
Yep. But I see us spending all the money, so I always think of, are we getting our bang for the buck, or is there an option? Right? What is the other option for taxpayers?
And the bang for the buck is huge. And like you said earlier, 44% of our...
I think 10% of that's fire.
Yeah,
so,
44% of our overall public safety budget is being largely distributed to our policing forces.
Yeah.
And that has come at the cost of our fire protection services. And we're seeing that, the Laidlaw fires where, we had interface fire, causing the evacuations of people in Hope and Laidlaw and the community. We're at a significant risk for that.
Yeah, I want to see prevention. Like I'd like to see in the pie, like a good chunk. Where's the prevention, right? Because that's how we, we're able to respond, but we're also able to plan for like the next disaster, and there will be something else that's going to come up.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And we know that there are funds available from the province to deal with mitigating actions that can be taken for interface fires. I think we should be accessing those. I think we should be planning our communities in such a way that we are mitigating the threat of interface fires in the eastern hillsides in Promontory. And I'd like to really be at the helm to be able to push that forward.
Yeah, we can do better.
We can do better.
That's your slogan,
Yeah.
right? That's perfect. Thank you so much
No
for
worries.
spending some time. I'm going to give you a minute. You know, I'm so glad we were able to squeeze you in, because it just didn't seem like enough time when we were doing the town hall. So I'm going to give you another minute on that elevator, you know, to talk directly to the people, and then give them a choice, you know, why Ian Carmichael should be the next mayor of Chilliwack. So thank you very much. I'm going to let you close right over here. Okay?
Thanks very much, Louis. And thanks again for everyone that's watching. I'm Ian Carmichael. I'm respectfully asking for your support as we go into this election season. We know that the last 40 years have got us to where we are today. We have some significant challenges with our land use and planning departments. We have issues with our climate, with our environment, with our social and economic base. I think the 40 years that has got us to this point isn't going to serve us well if we stay on that path for the next 40 years. So I'm asking for your support so that we can take the road to a better future. And it starts on Saturday, October 15th, with your help. Thank you very much.
Good job. Good luck, Ian.
Thanks very much, Louis.
Thanks, everyone.